Calvin.
Yo, yo.
It's episode 2. I think in
Hey, we made it.
to recap our first one, I think that all I did was shit on the old school designers and call Raph Costner a fucking washed up washed up game
It's a good
designer.
way to get some interest.
I didn't mean it, I swear. I don't mean it. I'm nobody. I bow, I bow, I bow. I swear.
Yeah. We were just establishing a bit of our philosophies and who we are. So
There's too much to talk about, and without great focus, we're gonna spread around the place for a bit, which is
sounds
okay.
good.
But honestly, I think let's look at some analytics today. How about that?
Sounds
So
good.
I want to see this plugin that you have. We're gonna look through some Steam Spy, some spreadsheet stuff, and maybe pull some numbers on some games within some
Okay.
categories.
I forgot what the plugin is. It's just some Chrome plugin to give you an estimate on Steam games. So you can just tell me the game and I'll tell you the number.
Okay, well let's pick this game that you were talking about before. Can you send me a link to it again, or I can just show it in
Yeah.
the chat? Fuck it, dude. Fuck it, dude.
So Vampire Survivors. This game is the indie darling right now. This is a game that is fairly simple to make, but according to mine, my plugin says it
Oh,
made
okay.
4.35 million.
4.3. Oh, that's right. You sent me that screenshot. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this game, I swear that I saw something about this like that looked very similar to this on Instagram, but it was just like flat green world with just particles going everywhere, and I was like, "What is this mess?"
You're,
like
it
how do you,
doesn't surprise me.
how can you even tell what's going on here?
It does better in video form, but basically to kind of explain this gameplay, you only move around. It's just like WASD, and
Okay,
you're constantly auto firing. It's
you
very
just
simple to
do
play. Yep,
nothing.
yep. Um, and there, I'll
Where's
tell.
the win button? I'm so confused here.
There are some AFK builds, but basically, you're gonna see from here on out, you're gonna see a few clones a month for this game. It basically is not that it started the genre. There are some
Yeah.
other games that did it, but this is the first one that really made it big.
So has this transition to mobile just yet? Do you think? Like, has somebody already taken this and put this on the phone? This concept?
Not really. So this game did come from a mobile game concept, actually.
Oh, okay. Of
But
course. Like
no,
just
there
idle
hasn't been.
games or
Yeah,
really in
yeah, kind
general.
of. Yeah.
It's got it over here on itch as well. Ah, with the redirect. That's kind of nice. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. On the itch.io page, they have a like embedded Steam page
Yeah.
thing. I didn't know that you could do that. That's kind of cool, actually.
Oh, yeah.
All right, here. Why don't I share my screen, seeing how I am already completely doling the camera across the top. Anyway, no. Uh, if I knew how to do anything. Right, so buy that
Oh, okay.
embedded
Yeah.
button with the price, because this is great if this comes up with with discounts and things like that too.
Totally.
I gotta figure out how to fucking do that. Goddamn. All right, so here we are on Steam Spy. I have got the premium edition. You can get that from the Patreon page. You have to pay $30 for the access to get all of the data. And some words of Steam Spy in general. My understanding of this from reading through a couple of different articles uh, over the while. I was gonna try and pull up something, but now I don't even remember what it is. Is that it's mostly based off of ownership. Steam Spy looks at as many different Steam accounts as it can possibly get its hand on, correct? And then it checks to see what what accounts own that game, and then basically tries to get you to a number from there. So it's really a big focus on more ownership rather than actual revenue.
Right.
And this is interesting because this is also then a blended chart, right? Like if I'm buying, let's say I bought the key and I get it off of Itch, or bought the key off of um, what is it called, GOG or G2A or any of these things. Like as long as I'm registering on Steam, I'm still doing that. So the pricing is always very different. Now, do we actually have a pricing chart in terms of 269? Interesting that the biggest drop here, but I can't tell now if this was a sale, right? Like Steam Spy doesn't specifically go and tell me like, hey, there was a sale at this time, but I'm guessing it is just tracking the price daily.
That's funny, anyways, because it's a $3 game, so you're
Yeah.
saving like 30 cents. at
Yeah,
most.
absolutely. They put it to $2.69. Interestingly enough, I think I don't know how long you can actually run a sale for these days. I don't know how short you can run one for, but from the 12th to the 15th, a 3-day sale. Nice. Another part of this, when you look at their data, is you'll see that ownership drops at times. Like this data is like really spiky, right? Like
Yeah, that's
ownership should not necessarily change, and that's where you need to try and look at like blended averages for these things and go and say, okay, well, like what's the max peak, but what's some of these lower points, and then what's the blended average between that. The problem is that maybe they don't get all of the account data. So like, are they pulling the same, if you were pulling the same accounts and new accounts and you missed some from previous runs, or you just weren't able to get that data, you end up getting like really spiky stuff like this. Now, there's a formula for actually like a really good one for calculating ownership off of just this.
Oh, the comment count?
Oh, yeah, I'm just trying to remember where my Swing Striker data stuff is.
Yeah, I've heard you just give a rough, take the number of comments and multiply it by 50 is what I've heard.
That sounds about right. Dead air, dead air, dead air. Everything's fine.
It'll be edited out.
No, absolutely will not be. Here is some data on. So, if you can find it, Danny's Steam data. There's a great website that's out there that gives you a bunch of different charts, but it also allows you to do a lot of tag category searching, which is amazing to do and is really helpful when you're trying to center your game and trying to figure out like, hey, like where do I actually sit? A lot of that's website specifically. I'll try and find it again later on, but try and bring it up. But you can pull down a lot of the different revenue data. A lot of their stuff though is predicted, and a lot of people do this where they start to trend out over the 5-year term. Knowing whether a game started in early access or not is really important, but also which tags that those games are using. So when you can find games within your tag categories and see who are the best ones there and what's performing, and then start breaking those things down, it can get really fun from there. I think I actually have.
From your experience, should you just have as many tags as you should have, or should you be a bit more specific?
I think as many tags as possible that are as poignant to your game as possible. So you want to be in as many different categories as you can, I believe. But it's really the top 3 tags is the thing that really matters. But that's kind of like behind the blue line because we don't really know like what the actual algorithm is for a lot of these things. And the reality is that that's why, like ASO is kind of like magic at times, right? Like it's all black box and you're just like poking at, like some people poke at it really hard and they find some magic within it and get some crossover, but you know, to me it's magic. I don't know. To me it's magic. It's not real. You just put in what's the most poignant things to your game and you just kind of go from there. But over time, like when you start doing this and you start coupling all of your things together, right? You'll look at these games and you'll say, okay, cool, Vampire Survivors, overwhelmingly positive, this is awesome. What are the tags for this game? Usually they go in somewhere around here, right? Yeah, here we go. Awesome. And you can start looking through yourself if you want to just like dig through and find games, but doing it this way will really help you out to get like good coverage for everything as quickly as possible. Now, once you then find a couple of games that you're doing and then like pull them in, you can start grabbing everything and making charts of those things over time. And this is what you'll mostly see for a large portion of the time. Who knows? Games don't really make that much money. Or a lot of games don't make that much money. And that's like it's just a general trend. But you also have to go and say like how useful is this data when Nidhogg 2 over here seems to only have made, I guess at the time of pulling this data, like not that much money. Like this is probably less than $200,000, which I don't think that that's true. Like, did Nidhogg 2 make less than Tesla versus Lovecraft? Like, I doubt it. Like, I would say that game made a ton more, but...
So what's the reason to use Steam Spy over just looking at Danny's Steam data?
Here's the problem. There's no real good way to do this, right? In my opinion, right now, there's not really a great way to show real game data because Steam doesn't give you that. So you can another place obviously is just Steam Blade, is it? Just the Steam dot like info.
Oh, SteamDB.
SteamDB info, yeah, right. And one of the more accurate ways now to see, like, that I like to say is, like, if a game is on the trend is looking at the Twitch numbers. So I pay attention to that more than I do everything else, because, like,
yeah,
I want to see, because it's the same as what we were saying about with the board games and things like that, too. It's not now necessarily about whether your game is fun. It's like, can you draw eyeballs, too?
Yeah.
Like, can your product actually, can it get over the line? And I just, like, don't know if that's necessarily, like, a great trend. Like, I don't know what to think about that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, actually think about this. Like, the biggest new game that people are kind of talking about is Multiversus, the WB Smash Killer. I don't know if you've looked.
No. No,
Oh
I don't
man,
know this at all.
it is a free-to-play Smash Bros game that's head by WB, and they have like they're throwing everyone together like Batman and Bugs Bunny and all that stuff. So it's getting some pretty big Twitch activity right now because it's in the beta, so people are curious.
Yeah, like what? So Brawlhalla is a free-to-play fighting game, right? And in that free-to-play fighting game, there's a lot of contention I've heard about power, right? And especially with like some of these abilities being able to. Oh, we're all wavy right now. My camera's all fucked up.
Oh,
Whatever.
I'm good.
I hear that there's just like a lot of problems with like the abilities and not knowing like what character is really doing what at certain times.
Oh,
right? Like
that's interesting. Well, Multiversus is tackling a lot of that. I don't want to go too far because we're still talking about analytics, but I will say this right now. I think it will surpass Smash in raw numbers. Although free to play is a huge element to that.
Yeah, like what kind of free to play are they doing? Is it character? Is probably like the general trend is character is soft currency, so you're buying progress, but then there's just a shit ton of depth of spend within all of that, right? So obviously cosmetics and skins, but are they doing changed up move sets and things like that too?
Yes, they have some sort of perk system that you have to earn. I'm not sure how, but it customizes your character's abilities.
Interesting. I'm very curious to see how that works. Um, yeah, like, because the thing is that, look, if League of Legends can do it, then, you know, any of it can work, like, honestly. What do you think of free-to-play in general, overall, now? Like,
Oh, I love free to play. I'll put it, I'll put it from a player's perspective. I have Steam and I have, a few thousand games on Steam, and I don't play any of the games. Like, I paid for the games or got them through some bundle, and it's like I don't play it. So, but for a free to play game, I always get well, I usually get my money's worth in free to play. So I don't know. As a busy gamer in this modern era of just having too much content to consume, man, free to play is just so much nicer because you're not investing into it. You invest when you want.
yeah, or you get sucked in, and then you start just dripping money into
Yeah, yeah.
it.
There is that.
That's how I get your ducats.
Yeah.
We've been
How
trying
about
to
you? How do you feel?
we've been trying to figure this out. Like, I'm fine with it. Like, I've come to the terms with it. I think that there's rights and wrong ways to do the patterns within these things, and like good free to play can be done, and it can be done interestingly and to the benefit of the user and everything else like that. But there are times where I've done some dark pattern stuff over time that I'm just like, uh like, if I'm being forced to do this, then what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, where are other people doing it that have less morals than me? And
Yeah,
then
you
we
know
get
what?
Coinmaster, and then it makes $1 billion, and you're like, wait, nah, like, this shouldn't be popular. Like,
Yeah.
this shouldn't be the thing that's good for everybody, right? Like, it's not amazing.
Yeah, you know what? You made a good point because there are a lot of, I was just looking at Clash Royale stuff yesterday, and I was just trying to get the general public sentiment, and I got a lot of posts that are like, "Man, this game is totally pay to win. I can't progress or beat people at some point."
In
But I guess
which
from what
game?
what's
Royale or
Clash
Clans?
Royale. But I don't know. You've probably played it more than I have too. Too bad.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing of edging power, where like you can just beat people with the original deck, right? Like, you can just make it work, and
Oh
like
wow.
I have for so long now, right? So um, I had to restart because back when my last company went under, I lost all my progress. Note to self: don't ever sign up to an Apple account using a work email address, especially when that work email address doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah,
now, like,
yeah,
my
yeah,
entire life is tied to an email address that doesn't exist, and I'm
yeah.
just like, never lose this phone. Just never, never in a day lose this phone. But I would classify that I am using, like, some of the. I'll just do none. We'll go between the veil. My camera's all kind of weird and fucky, but I would say that I
Oh,
would
the
just
starter
use
ones.
a
Yeah.
very starter set of
Nice.
cards. Now I'm using the digger over here, but I would use like Goblin Barrel or something like that as like hyper effective. But you get those within the first 3 tiers of
Right.
the season, right? Or the of starting up. Now, when the game first came out versus it right now, very different story, I think. I think very different story. It was a lot slower, progression was harder, gold requirements were a lot less. Now they have this mastery system that they just added, and Game Refinery did like a great article kind of highlighting this as like Western tropes, and how like certain games are kind of evolving, right? Uh, it gives you a cash boost once you get your character to like level 10, or sorry, like you progress to like a certain level with your player level. You get your card up to a certain level, then it unlocks the mastery. The first mastery tier is static across all characters. It is like, get this many kills and you get 1,000 gold. So it then starts they're having the problem that over time, players want to play the same deck because we just subset into what we know, right?
Yeah, totally.
I know my strategy. I know how my deck works against all of these other decks. So then I just play one set of cards. What they really want is breadth. Like they're
Oh
like,
yeah.
I need you to go across the board. So this mastery system and giving this flat 1,000 gold for a very simple task pushes the player to upgrade to that level on that card, and then you have to play with that card for at least like 5 games, and then you get this huge cash injection. So across the board, you always have this like nice little tick box that you can always do if you want to go back and kind of pick up over time. But so I feel like personally it's a lot easier now. You can just kind of play the same deck, but when you get into the later things, it's like you just need the cards. You just need the cards, you just need the upgrades. Like the further you go up the power band, the worse it's going to be. When you're down in kind of like the mid-tier doldrums and everything, and you're fighting everybody who's fighting for scraps, great. But yeah, I would not doubt it's like, because there is a cap, I think, on characters, on character levels. But
yeah, and
anyway.
last thing I'll jump on that is so yeah, it sounds like you had a good experience, and likewise, I've
I'm
two games I've
addicted
played.
now. I'm addicted.
2 games I've played played for a decent amount are the Asian ones, Arknights and Alchemy Stars, and both games are just super generous. And I never even think twice that, oh man, this game is just trying to extract my money. It's just incredibly generous, and that's why I look favorably at free to play. But I can definitely understand people that might have played like Coin Master or something and be like, you know what, these games are just trying to rip me off.
Yeah, but like look at Genshin Impact. Like,
Yeah, Genshin,
I mean,
you're right.
did great. Free to play, beautiful. Whatever.
Yes.
They grabbed some asset packs off the store. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like it's exploration is rewarded. As a free to play player, if I go out into the wild, I pick up my chests and I get new things. If I do my dailies, I get there. Can I pay through the grind? Sure. But the game systems are there for me to have a very clear, like almost RuneScape experience without like memberships as well, which is like kind of nice.
Yeah, man. You're absolutely right. I think Genshin helped a lot with shifting like the whole public sentiment. You got Genshin, you got Multiverses coming out, and then you got Project L, which is like the upcoming Riot fighting game that's going to be free to play.
Yeah.
And like this is going to be all showing the benefits, because I have so many fighting games that I bought and I just barely played for various reasons, and it's like, man,
because they're hard to learn.
Yeah, exactly. They take a lot of time.
The community kind of sucks at times.
Exactly. Fighting games are just such a huge investment, and then people are like, I don't want to pay $60 just to get my ass kicked. So
and to get abused.
Yeah.
If I was gonna go on Street Fighter with my fight stick right now, like it would be like a 360, Microsoft 360 chat room. It'd just be everybody just be shouting at me like, where did you come from? How the fuck did you start? Do you even have thumbs? I'd love that one. At some point, we'll get back to analytics. I found these pages. Anyway, so here's some of the stuff that I've been using. And I sent it into the chat there for you if you want to kind of follow along as well. So this was a really great, weird, off-the-wall website that I found. So Sergio is the guy who does Steam Spy. He put up, I believe, anyway. Is he the guy who does it? No, this isn't the same dude. That's a different guy. But he's done some really nice little articles over time. I think he keeps putting them out, which is great. One of the ones that he did, How I Run My Indie Studio Part 1, Estimating Revenue. He's done a lot of different mechanisms, or at least like given some algorithms for these things, which is really nice. But this was one of the bigger documents that I keep going back to, and I've been finding this really useful. So the blog post is here that goes into a bunch of different stuff, including the methodology, describing how he's getting all of this data. If you really want to dig into it, go for it. This is where I was talking about the owner ratio to reviews. Like that, yeah. So like, trying to tell like give ratings to different games or like find the prices, and he uses a bunch of different formulas and a bunch of different things, and I don't really know anymore. I don't know, but I use the data. But the big thing that I use on this website, especially because it was out in 2019, is the tag system. So nicely enough, let's see. This is all loading from a spreadsheet that is in the background. Amazingly, this is all plugged in on top of just like Google Sheets. But this is all mostly for 2019, all of the different games and everything. For you can check to see if it was in early access, all of that jazz. The ones that I have been using for sports, I think. For Swing Striker.
Probably like local multiplayer.
No, we're full online PvP
Oh,
now.
okay.
Yeah, dude, we're online PvP. It's crazy.
Nice.
Action, adventure, casual, and indie. And we should probably put sport in there too.
Gotcha.
But there is a cap on how many things that we can have. But action, indie, and adventure. Let's just do those, right? So we just see a kind of blended thing.
Do you want to share your screen on this one? Don't know if you want to.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, of course. Am I not sharing my screen? I am. I do believe so. Can you see my screen?
No. Wait. Oh, it's been up. It's been up. Okay.
No worries. This is what happens when you're trying to put up things on a different monitor as well. So you'll end up getting like a little bit of a scatter plot that looks kind of like worse than this, but like hopefully better than this. Clicking on each individual one is great, but seeing total revenues, the number of games within these categories has been kind of useful as well too, because some of these things I found that just having a sense of like how well does a category actually even do will tell you how well you should probably how well you should, or how much you should value that tag within your lineup as well. So you could think of this in two different ways. Action, adventure, and indie are all saturated categories. These are all fatty like, you know, circles. They're larger game pools, but they have higher revenue totals, right, than the base side here. Most sports games don't seem to make a lot of money over 5 years. So, do you want to superset into that category, or do you just go and say to yourself, actually, most people aren't playing in here, and I don't want to swim within this pool because I won't be visible. So, knowing that at least you have a couple of different bigger options, obviously action, adventure, and indie are going to be like bigger pools, but it comes down to how much do you want to value these things here too. So, if we had put sport into our categories and put it in maybe second, we might see like an interesting crossover where we might be promoted over here versus kind of getting buried in any of these. But realistically, you're just going to get buried anyway. But I like using this as just getting a high level for like what the game markets are doing. Because when we look at...
Oh my God, looter shooters.
Looter shooters, yeah, this is 2019. Looter shooters are popping off with the PUBG side of things.
Yeah.
When we look at... Where's my... Sorry, I have a deck on a different screen that I'm trying to find the most up-to-date version of. And I'm probably not going to find it. And I'm probably just wasting time.
I see open world survival craft at number 8 tag down there. I would say in 2022 is number 1 tag.
Number 1 tag, open world survival craft.
That's all I see nowadays.
That's it. Yeah, what was that voxel game that did a bunch?
Valheim?
Valheim is one of them for sure, absolutely. There was one that's come out with like a load of destructible stuff that has been pretty cool. Anyway, you can take these things and start drilling down. From here, you can actually go and build a spreadsheet that is just these games and these from these categories. So it helps you to kind of subset directly from this top level directly into your game markets. Those spreadsheets then start to look like. Let me see if I can actually find the thing. Here it is. So big caveats, right? Like obviously, how accurate are these numbers? We've just seen that ownership is really the biggest thing that matters within these things. So this person is using a very detailed methodology to try and extract to these numbers, so you can kind of just pick and choose of what you believe and what you don't believe. But when you're going to publishers and stuff like that, knowing your key performers within your market and who is actually doing well and who has been doing well over time, but then also knowing a blend of this is a little graph that we use in one of our pitch decks for Swing Striker to talk about how multiplayer changes our revenue possibilities. So by looking at a number of different games within our marketplace, within our tags, and things that we are going to be competing against, especially within our price bracket of, well, what we were at the time of actually making this at $20. We're not that anymore. We're actually going free to play on Swing Striker, or at least thinking about it. But there's a very clear difference between the lower bounds of games and the upper bounds of games. All of the upper bound games all had multiplayer PvP. Every one of them was able to out of the box get directly into a match as quickly as possible, and their goal was the lowest amount of friction to being in a lobby and adding people to that lobby. And a lot of the pattern that we're seeing now is the same thing you see in like the Pokemon mobile game. It's like somebody starts up a lobby and we get a lobby ID, and then everybody just joins off of that lobby ID, rather than saying, hey, what's your friend code? I'm going to add you as a friend, then you're going to start a lobby, then I'm going to invite you. Now it's just like, no, I have a lobby, here's my code, everybody can go to it, and then you can add each other when you're in the lobby. And that lower barrier to friction has been a huge bump here, and something that you're going to start seeing in most multiplayer games going forward is just like a lot lower. But this purple line here is interesting because this was our year one revenue break-even point target. So we knew that, like, regardless of whatever we did, as long as we could get off of this bottom line, we would be profitable, right? The median is this big black one in the center, but the big thing for us was just saying, like, all of these games on the bottom, the commonalities were they're local multiplayer and they don't have a lot of legs. But as soon as they add online multiplayer, there's a big shift. So we're just automatically, the hope is that we would automatically be higher on this bounds just because we, theoretically have local multiplayer. But that doesn't work in practice when it doesn't work. But
how much do you think free to play affected those numbers? Do you think you can reach the upper bounds without free to play?
Definitely. Because the upper bounds games here, these are not actually free to play games. These are all paid games.
Yeah. What's the top game there? That top blue line.
That is, I think this was Pummel Party within that section. Yeah, readability of graphs when you're showing it to people. It's all. This is kind of like bad, right? But sometimes you just want to tell a story, right? So
sure.
The whole deck process today is a lot of telling a story from start to finish. So market and opportunity is a section. What is the free-to-play model? Why do we believe that this is? And we'll show you the picture, and we'll pick out a couple of little things, but I'm not telling you everything here, and I'm not expecting you to learn everything here. I'm just expecting you just to look at this and just be like, okay, cool, listen to my voice. I am telling you what we're going to do. Then the header is really the thing that we're using to kind of push, and then the graphing is really the visual context of just saying, premium games have a cap. Freemium games are infinite scale, like if you can. This is an interesting one that Jamie always brings up too. Is like making sure that we can push for players to get into the game too. A big strategy change for us has come because we work in free to play. We've worked in free to play for almost our entire careers. But also when we look at games like Squid Game, and we talk about the barrier to entry to joining players, streamers pushing free to play products and then having no barrier to entry for them to play with their fans is like a huge win. If a streamer can get into your game, download it for free, and then say, "Hey, any of you can go get this and come play with me. Here's my lobby code. Here's my whatever." And they just jump in and out of games with their community. You will see organic growth of downloads shoot through the roof because all of a sudden one user is now pushing the downloads of, in our case, 3 other users. So our cost per install goes way down. And that's the K factor. That's, if you look it up on Wikipedia, K factor is a marketing term for social virality. Like how, from one user, how many other users can you get through just pure organic traffic means? The big thing here is that if you actually have a barrier to entry, right? Like let's say that game, we put it out, it's $15.99. That's on the low end. Maybe we're on sale, $14.99. That $14.99 for an individual user who's, let's say a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, they're watching their favorite streamer and they're playing this game. They want to play with them, or they want to like maybe play that game themselves. If that number is too high, they won't do it. So they'll just watch. So you'll get really high. You might get high streaming numbers if the game is entertaining, but you won't get the downloads and the revenue that you're looking for.
That's interesting.
But there's also this idea of I will wishlist it and buy it once it's on sale valley, where it's like $5 is like these days I think is still a bargain, right? Like it can be interpreted as like a funny thing. It's like if your game is $5, like is it really even worth $5, right? Like people like look at your game kind of like weird. But if you start going into these higher tier prices and then start going into the premium prices, people are kind of more willing to do the research and then find out about your game, but you probably have put more work and effort into your game. But there's just this lull here where it's just like, this is just dead land.
Yeah. You got Elden Ring sitting at the right end there.
Yeah. Like why do I want to make this premium purchase at the $20 mark when I don't know your game, I don't know your company, I don't know if I'm really going to enjoy it. You'll get a lot more refund returns if your game is not like polished, especially if you're in early access. But something that we're doing is like an early bundle thing is saying $4.99 early access game and buy this up front as like our adopter package. We'll give you some in-game DLC for just being in the early access stuff. And then once it goes full release, the game will go fully free to play. And then you'll lose. And then, if you didn't get that early adopter bundle, you won't get it again. So just making sure to push exclusivity, but also try to gain some revenue back on that final push to release. Because like up to now we've spent 2.5-3 years working on this, and it's to get it to pay dividends now would give us the cash boost to keep moving forward, basically.
Yeah. I had a question on Steam pricing points. So for the longest time, whenever I saw a $5 or less game, I was just like, oh, this is just like a really very short experience. Probably not a very complete game.
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of my mentality. First off, how do you feel about like, I mean, obviously you're in that space, but what were your impressions of $5 or less games before?
I love it.
Oh, okay.
I love it. To me, it's like the bargain bin. It's like I'm in the clearance aisle. I'm like, what can I fucking snake off these people? Like I say that, like I go to Safeway and I'll go to the place where they have the day old bread, or like
Oh,
the stuff that they're just trying to get rid of. And I'll be like, all right, yeah, that's $2.99 for an entire cake. Yeah, of course. It was $7.99 before. Why wouldn't I get that? Like
oh
that's.
yeah, I buy the Kroger cereal instead of the premium brand cereal as well.
I
But
also think that I'm platform is a thing for me. So like if I'm on itch and I see a $2.99 or a $3 game, I'm way more inclined to spend that money and feel good about it. Whereas on
yeah, oh yeah,
Steam, I'm not necessarily as excited. Like I'm more judgmental on that platform than I am on itch. Like I will just
I
look at
agree.
something this game here, Tendy Robot Gardener. Oh my god! Like one, this thing looks sick. This looks absolutely sick. I don't know what's happening here,
Yeah, this wow.
right? But
Dan, this looks like the it almost looks like Into the Breach in terms of like quality.
yeah. So I just go and say it's like, yeah, whatever, dude. It's $3.99. It's now $3.59. 10% off. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know how long the game is. I don't care if it's one level concept. Like this is kind of cool. Like I would just get this just for the sake of it. Because I think that there's a difference between. I don't know if there's a difference between levels of creativity or not. Like the games that go up on itch, if you stacked all $5 games on Steam versus all $5 games on itch, like you know who's winning.
I I
You know
100%
who's
agree.
winning, you know? But maybe that's just because I'm a game designer, and but I think that this is where, this goes into a whole spiraling topic of like where innovation actually is within
Sure.
our market right now. Like we were talking in the last time about how everything feels really cookie cutter in terms of the process plans. Like there's idle games and every idle game has the same idle mechanic. Like you gotta put the fucking piggy bank in the goddamn game. If you don't put the piggy bank in the game, you're gonna lose revenue. It's like Jesus Christ. Like so where are people really playing games and finding innovation? And I think it's always in places like itch. It's mods. Like I will watch mods, people playing them more than anything else. Like that's how we got auto chess in the last like 3-4 years, which absolutely blew up. um
Speaking of the feature stuff, yeah, le- in App Annie, which is the analytics platform for mobile games, they have this ability to just like look at all the features of a game. So all the companies that are using App Annie are just like, oh crap, these guys got a piggy bank. We definitely need a piggy bank, and they're just all pretty much just looking at that. I forgot what it's called. It's like feature.
it's the feature specs or feature
Yeah,
comparisons. Yeah, it's that stuff is mad. Is
it's useful. It saves so much time.
this so you have to do that, okay? When
Yeah,
you're doing comp analysis and competitor analysis, it doesn't matter what your game is, you should always look to see what are the feature sets of your other games. But what you shouldn't do is try to build your game based off of the puzzle pieces of somebody else's project. And that drives me insane. So how my last big major company went under was this. They sold the game off of one slide that said all other games, our game, all their features, and then had ticks in the cells
I've seen
of
it.
like what games had what. And our like line had every box ticked, and it was like we're gonna have all of the features.
That's such a business slide. You've seen them in like if you look at any startup slide, that's what they do. They're like us compared to the competitor, and then it just ticks all the boxes.
It was madness. It was absolutely madness. So, um, Neil Edwards and I joke about that constantly, where we're just like, "Oh yeah, remember when we just completely like didn't understand how to make games at all, and we just didn't get it." And like that's a problem because people do these things where they just build by puzzle pieces and by bundle blocks. But here is this gets into a great place. Oh, did I get booted? Oh. Google. There we go. My company name is Google. Share my screen.
And I'll make a quick note that this is a popular practice because it is very hard to understand how well a design is going to do. I mean, you need a solid game design background to do that.
If you're gonna be spending the dollars that these people, that these companies do spend, like, you have to find any angle to mitigate risk as much as possible. I don't put it behind these things. It's just that it all depends on how risk adverse you really are. Like, if you have a couple of swings at the bat, great. But if you don't, and you don't have that time to, like, find your gameplay, you're gonna have to live and die by this, because the biggest thing is that the marketing budgets are more expensive than the fucking game development budgets. You basically take your whole game development budget and multiply it by 2, and then you have to spend that up front without ever making a dime back, especially in free to play. Features. This is Game Refinery. This is kind of like what the App Annie one sort of looks like, but it's not exactly the same. But this is a great comparison when we look at mobile game data and how much data we get off of our players versus on the Steam side. The Steam side, we just looked at some janky spreadsheets from 2019 and some fucking really obscure ownership numbers that somehow loosely translate into revenue. Here I can, like, literally just go and say, like, yes, this is what this game has. These are the screenshots for all of these things, right?
Nice.
They break it down and actually, like, tell you a little bit more about it. If you want to pay for the premium stuff, that you can. But
can you access this free, or is this on Game Refinery, or is it paid?
this is the free. This is the
free.
free.
Nice! I didn't know about this.
Yeah. Revenue and downloads. They do featured games on Daily Insights, and they'll do the top games, which is great because you can pull data on the top games when you want to. This is, again, exactly what you're saying. This is all free. This is Clash of Clans. This is Supercell's biggest game. And I'm just going to go all the way back to January 1st, 2016 here, and trend out total revenue across the whole thing. Making, we're just making a billy. Just making a billy. $1.5 billion in total revenue. Like, what an insane amount, right? The biggest thing that I like here, right? Like, look, I'm breaking down by revenue. We're granularity by day. I can do downloads. I can do downloads and revenue all time and see these things too, which is great, because what we're looking for is performance metrics on our updates. This is the graph that you will use when you're a project manager, PM, on any mobile game, when you are really at the tippity top and trying to do data analysis on a video game. Like, how well is a mobile game in your, really doing, and why is it doing so well? Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, these are games as a service, right? It is live operations. We put the game out, but we were constantly tweaking it. We were constantly trying to find how can we, per month or per quarter, increase our revenues, increase our margins, monetize the game better, but also, like, get more downloads for cheaper. CPI, eCPI, your cost per install is the biggest metric, like, that you care. If your cost per install is more than your lifetime value of your player, then you are dead in the water. You're losing money over time, and you can't sustain that. So you need to figure out how to change.
Any chance you know of a site that can estimate a game's CPI, or is that just totally internal data to
no, so one of the things you can do is run ads yourself and get benchmarks. And another thing you can do is you can actually just email. I've heard this from other marketing people, is that they'll just email the companies and just say, hey, can you just tell me what the the CPI on these tags would be on any given day? And they will just tell you, like, it's this. Because all the ad networks all have different numbers, right? So you don't really know what your cost per install is, but you know what your cost per impression is. Your cost per install is technically a like blended number because you have, or a calculated number, right? Because you pay for marketing, but it's how many from the impressions actually get through the funnel, download your game, and are there, and they get there from the ad. And that's the hard part there too. It's like you have to attribute that they actually like came down that funnel and actually downloaded that game, blah 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 blah. But that's that's how you do that, right? Like it's per milli or whatever. You just like divide it and go from there. But like let's look at Clash of Clans for like the last year. This is revenue and downloads. And one of the interesting things we can see here is that downloads has fallen over time. And I think if I trend this out like another year when this updates. Oh, maybe it won't. Maybe it will. We probably would end up seeing just like a slower decline. So we could tell like when have they kind of turned off the taps in terms of user acquisition spend. Hello?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. The website like seemed to crash, and I was just like, have I just gone offline? I've just been rambling for like 20 minutes. Nothing new here. But yeah, so like, look, revenue spikes, big spike here, decent spikies all over the place. So what we're seeing here is some weekend play, I think. So July 1st, 2021. What was that? Was that a weekend? Month, May, June, April.
Looks like Thursday.
It's a Thursday. What about August 1st, August 2nd, August 1st? Are these all on the month? They're all on the month.
August 1st was a Sunday.
Haha, so check that out, right? So what is Clash of Clans doing on the month every single month? Because looking at this, you go and say, well, cool, they revenue spike on the 1st of the month every single month. Is that subscriptions? Is that something else? And then using your brain and playing the game and then going and saying, all right, like finding what that feature is, you can directly as a PM go and say, oh, well, like that feature accounted for this amount of revenue from this game based off of this many users at the time as well, like because we can kind of see those numbers here based off of playtime and blah blah blah. But being able to know whenever whenever a new update happens and saying what actually influenced the spike later on is huge. We used to always look at just top grossing and just kind of like, funnel it down from here. But
yeah, I've been there, just looking at the top one.
Yeah, and then you see like Big Fish's casino slots, and you're like, Puzzles and Survival X G.I. Joe. This is I had no idea. G.I. Joe. Oh my god.
Oh, it's a match 3. Nice.
A match 3 G.I. Joe. With gacha and characters and beer. And bald people that look like Joe Rogan. And that looks like Game of War. Looks like exactly like Game of War. Actually doesn't even look like the same game. As, like we haven't really seen a screenshot of like real gameplay. Nice. Cool. Awesome. Well, like that's the thing. So I think that for me right now it is interesting trying to deal with getting data off of these multiple platforms. Steam definitely is beholden to a lot of the PC data, and it's hard to aggregate all of those things because we don't have the same kind of hooks for ads that we do in Steam games. But like, do you ever see, like, would incentivize ads do well in free to play PC games the way that they monetize at like 30% of your bottom line revenue in mobile?
Like, do I expect to see ads in Steam?
Yeah, like these lower paid games, right? Like if so here's the trend that I see. More games are coming from console directly to mobile.
Okay.
They're all going to be, technically free to play because I don't think anybody really wants to do a premium game on mobile anymore. Most mobile games do incentivize ads. Incentivize ads becomes a decent little bottom end revenue for these people. So, do we think that over time, like, would incent ads actually do well in a PC game?
Damn, that is a really good question. My first gut reaction is that people on PC are so used to not seeing ads
Are
that
they
they
just gonna nerd rage?
the sentiment is, I think, is going to be really rough because actually Street Fighter 5 is not a free game, but they actually threw in some ads, some light ads. It was like self company Capcom ads
Okay.
into the game, and I mean that got a lot of flack, but that's because they already paid for the game, not free to play. Um, so man, if I had to, I think the backlash will be real, but like kids, they just love free to play. Like they don't care. They, as long as they can get free to play, they'll watch the ads.
Yeah.
Like there's no ads in Roblox either, so I think it'd be hard.
There's no ads in Roblox.
I don't think so. Uh, no, you just open a game and you get to it. As far as I know.
Crazy. Yeah, it's mad. UCG is the way, like especially in this whole metaverse like world of things. Like if making sure that players can build content and then monetize that content is a huge thing. I swear if I had a child right now, I would be putting them in a little sweatshop to make mods for different games and just be
Oh
like,
yeah,
you're making models or you're making something. Like, I don't give a shit. You're paying for your college tuition this way.
there you go.
You know what I mean? And just get them going early as fast as
Pay
possible.
pay your college with Robux.
That would be hilarious. I would love that. I would think it would work too, which is probably like the scarier thing. But I don't know, like data is so funny these days. In mobile, it really is a lot more straightforward, and ease of access to some of that data, if you know where to look, is good. App Annie is by far just the best overall. If you ever do get to see that portal, it's madness, like the wizardry that you can find out about a game. But
And would you say for free, if you don't want to pay, Game Refinery might be the best?
I think it's pretty great, especially when if you are up on it, right? If you want to be a PM and you want to like do this job and you want to really optimize and figure out, I need to build this game, but I need to build this game for commercial success, because this is a big difference when we're talking about building on the indie side and building for the commercial success. My groups are going to be putting millions and millions of dollars into the production side of these things. We have to get it right. We can't get it wrong. Like we will tank the company if we get it wrong. So we have to pay attention to these things, and the accuracy is really important. But on the flip side, is like you guys could make the game that you want to make, and make it feel the way you want it to feel, and say a message and tell a message. Whereas I don't have that luxury all the time. I kind of have to do some genericism and kind of know what works within these spaces a little bit more than all of that too, you know?
I have a question for more of the, I guess, indie side, which is if you've already, so usually you already have a game idea,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just so you're already like halfway through. How can you use these tools to help you if you've already kind of have an idea and you're already going with it?
The biggest thing I think is one, like if I'm gonna be using the Steam Spy stuff or any of that, like the tagging thing is really good for me. Knowing what your price point is gonna be is really great.
That's true.
Knowing where you're gonna be when you go and put your game on sale is great. being able to find who you're going to be competing against within your market is so important, especially when you're an indie, because you don't necessarily, just like you were saying, it's like, oh, there's all these games that are open world survival, crafty, blah blah blah, right? Like, so maybe not building that idea is the right play. If that's an oversaturated place, you need to know that like what you're building is like, I'm going into that market now. Like I'm gonna be there, and I need to now compete with those people, and that's what then drives you into, well, what are their feature sets? Hey, I'm gonna have crafting. They already have crafting. What do people like about it? What do people not like about it? And then how do I refine within that loop? Because crafting, oh Jesus, I could go off. I could go off on crafting, but it's you got to find how you can either be your niche within your marketplace, and either do it on full independence and just saying, I have a story to tell and I'm going to tell that story, and I don't care that there are other games here, and I'm just unique. You know what I mean? I'm Hades. Hades ain't even that fucking unique. I don't know. People love that game, and I'm like, this is roguelike with compounding things. Like, great.
Super polished.
Yeah, so, yeah, super polished. I'll give it that. I will give it that. It was great that sense. But yeah, that's the thing for me. It's like, it just depends on how much you really want to look at it and really go, I think, into your own idea versus how commercially successful do you want to try to be. And there's a level of refining within the commercial world that we just, risk mitigation is there. So it's like, it's always this +1, and my +1 is my innovation, but everything else is kind of like this, stale. It's kind of the same.
Yeah, I think I saw a data point where like local multiplayer games, there are a lot, and this is something that these platforms will tell you. There are a lot of local multiplayer games, but they don't make very much money, like as a median. So that would probably, I guess, if you were already making one, that would probably tell you, hey, you should probably do something different to stand out, I guess.
That, or own it. Like, I've seen some people own local multiplayer, and they'll put out one core mechanic that does one thing really well, and that's the game. It's $1.99, it's $2.99. You buy it, you have it, and then they'll make new ones every 3 months. And then all of a sudden now they have a product catalog of 5 games that are all $2.99, $1.99, and because that on the merit of the individual mechanic itself is still fun and entertaining, they'll see consistent revenue. And consistent revenue is a nice place to be, especially when you have no product in market and you're just like, is this going to sink or swim? Is this going to work or not, right? So I don't know about, like, what are your groups telling you? Like, is that actually a viable option to try and put out a couple of games at a really low level price? Like, get things to the store. Like, build one little thing and get it to the store. Or are people really just so hyper focused on their own project and their own ego within it that they're just like, I gotta finish this one big thing, and it's got all right on this one thing.
That's definitely 100% still what I hear, just from talking to devs or just looking at the general community, is they want the $15 indie game and they want to make it pretty amazing. But that is why I was looking, or I was also asking about Vampire Survivors, because that, similar to how Genshin changed the impression of free to play, I think Vampire Survivors, and only one other game that I know of, are these $3 games that are changing the perception of these games. They're no longer bargain bin. I'm not even looking.
It seemed like you're getting a lot for a little.
Yes, because if you scroll down to Vampire Survivors, the comments, you will see 200 hours played, 200 hours played.
Oh, for real?
So for $3, I mean, that's it's an easy buy at that point. So it's a new kind of market. I think it's very viable to do these cheap replayable games. They usually use like roguelike techniques, because that's how you get replayability.
Everything's got to be procedural, man. Which I'm fine for. I actually been trying to push for it harder at this new place, and people are not biting. Everything's like reward tables and drop lists, and
Yeah,
everything's kind of like hardcore random. And I'm like, like
yeah,
okay, cool, whatever, that's fine.
yeah. I think prestige is pretty readily acceptable nowadays.
Okay.
I don't think it used to be.
So that's the thing is just like, what's gonna take the shift? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard enough to make a game by itself. It's hard enough to make a small $3 game and have it sell that well too. So like, what was? But that going back to that barrier to entry in that $5 price point, like in saying, well, everything past this $5 point is like the lull territory of like, I'll put it in the wish list and I'll never look at it again. Um, how do you stand out within that area? And now it's like, do we start building $15 games for $5 now? It's like, it's not, right? Like,
Yeah,
is it
I
just
don't. I
hyper
don't want that.
casual? Is it just hyper casual as hit Steam and it's got a $3 price point?
Yeah, that's a good point because when mobile went from paid games to free to play, people were trying to resist that. You don't want everyone to be like, oh, this Steam game's over $5. I don't want to buy this. You don't want that shift to happen in the the public perception.
No, you try not to, right? All right, we're over an hour. Let's leave it there, and we'll try and see what we can get to on the next one. We'll just like continue this.
Sounds good.
Calvin, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.